Today's an Ask Dr. B. So let's dive into that.
I have a question.
Okay.
Um, what what's a good way to tell that you are getting a good sourced supplement? Like other than the ones that you recommend, like if we want to do something more on our own, what kind of research should we be looking for to be able to make sure that we're getting really what we think we're getting and that it's a good source versus most the supplements that are out there?
Yeah, good question. So how can you tell if a supplement is quality? I've made a couple of videos on this in the past. And the first thing I tell people is to look at the B vitamins in the supplement and specifically go straight to B12. And what it'll say is if you turn the label over, um, it'll say something like vitamin B12, and then it'll have parentheses, and it will say something cobalamin in the parentheses. And cobalamin is B12, but then the other names are one name is hydroxycobalamin. One name you could find is methylcobalamin. Another is adenosine cobalamin. And then the last and most common one is cyanocobalamin. And the cyanocobalamin is crap and it gets metabolized to what it sounds like, which is cyanide in the body, which is, ingesting cyanide isn't a good strategy for long life. So I wouldn't take the cyanocobalamin. So that's the first thing I do. If you want to look at any supplement and say, is this quality? If it has B12 in it, look at the B12 and you want it to say any of these others. Any of these three are fine. They're good. The body can use all three of these. Adenosine is used is B12 that is most readily used in the mitochondria. Methylcobalamin is the methylated form that is, most readily used everywhere. Hydroxycobalamin is one step away from methylcobalamin, and the body can change that to methylcobalamin as needed. And so the hydroxy is nice because it is possible to over methylate. So I know a lot of people, take the methylated forms because there's a lot of blogs and podcasts and videos and everything talking about you need the methylated form if you're under methylating, homocysteine, heart disease, blah, blah, blah. But it is possible to over methylate. And so people who take methylated Bs and get more anxious or get other, unexpected symptoms, they may be over methylating or hypermethylating. And so they're more likely to do well with the hydroxy form because their body can take that and, shunt some to methyl when needed and then keep the other as hydroxy. So that would be the first easiest thing to do. And then you can go on and look at folate, which is vitamin B9. And again, the best form is going to be methylfolate unless you are an over methylator. So methylfolate is one to look at. Another one that is acceptable and good is folinic acid. That one's okay. But if you see folic acid, which again is the most common one because it's the cheapest and crappiest, that's the one you don't want to take because again, that one is metabolized to a toxin in the body as well. So you want to skip that. Another one you can look at, is vitamin B6. Okay, and it can show up as a couple forms. If it shows up as, let me get the spelling right, pyridoxine, I think that's the right spelling. That's the inactive form of B6. That's okay. It'll show up as like pyridoxine hydrochloride on the label. But the best form is P5P, which stands for pyridoxal 5-phosphate. That's the active form of B6. And so again, better higher quality brands will use that. They'll give you the active form. So that's how you can do it with B vitamins. And then there's always, if that doesn't work, or if you're taking something that doesn't have B's in it, you can drop down to the ingredients list underneath the label where it says what vitamins are in it. And in here, you're looking for things like colors, dyes, sucralose, sweeteners, aspartame. Um, what else? Binders and things like that. And if they've got a bunch of that stuff, or really any of that stuff, I would say no. So if you're on this call, you've been given a quality multivitamin by me, so you could take that label and compare it to your Centrum Silver label, and you'll notice the huge difference in both what forms of B vitamins are being used, but then also at the other ingredients part of the label, you'll see the Centrum has the binders and food glaze and colors and all of that, all the things that make them known as bedpan bullets in the hospital, because they go in a hard tablet and they come out and tink against the bedpan as a hard tablet.
Hmm.
If you're taking something without bees, also, like, let's say you have a fish oil. So if you're taking a fish oil, one thing you can do is bite the capsule. And if you bite it and you never want to do that again because it's rancid and nasty, then that tells you that's probably not a good one. Or if you smell it and it smells rancid, that could be, either it's a poor quality or it sat out in the heat or in the sunlight, too long and got oxidized that way. Um, so that's a way to tell. One one way you can tell with fish oil. Again, you could have a quality one that, was on the delivery truck too long in the summer and just got oxidized. And if so, then maybe you call the company and ask them to send you a new one. Any questions on that?
No, just I was thinking more of things like a things like dose, or these things that are advertised that really are supposed to help you whatever in specific ways. I don't know what it's really called, but the broccoli extract stuff, sulforaphane, or like I don't know what
Sulforaphane?
it's called. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, and I just was reading somewhere that some of them will claim that that's really that's what they are, but they're really not. And so I just was curious how like, are there certain brands that you just know are good, or there's research that you can look at somewhere that says, okay, this brand actually has what they say they have versus the brand that
Yeah. Yeah.
says
So
that
the
but isn't real.
Yeah, so I have made a video on this too. In 2015, there was an independent study done where um, researchers went into Walmart and GNC and Target and, Harris Teeter or whatever your grocery store is, and they bought a bunch of supplements off the shelf to say, is what they're listing on the label actually in here? And by and large, it wasn't. And what was in there was like dirt and plant parts and, all these things that aren't what were on the label and were at best inert or potentially, needed to be detoxed and potentially toxic by the person for the person taking them. And so the your best shot is to use a, practitioner based brand that is third party tested, and you can get, say, reports on their batches, a recent batch, say, like I know Botics research with their fish oil, they have batch numbers for every batch that they do, and they source their fish oil from small fish from the Pacific. And so you could call them and ask for the report for your batch number, and you could see where in the Pacific it was sourced from and when, and all the info on it. So um, looking for companies like that are also saying, hey, this is guaranteed to be free of gluten and soy and dairy or whatever the allergens are that might concern somebody. But if you're buying it on the shelf from, again, GNC or Target, it's basically marketing by them, and you can tell quickly by just looking at the ingredients list this product isn't being made to promote health in people. This product's it's like piggybacking on a trend.